Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and it's the week before Forsaken. So of course this is the time that now Bungie is going to start launching us with a lot of information. And boy howdy, if that isn't the case, I don't know what is. You know, like you do. Anyway, I really wasn't going to sit and comment about anything about the trailers, the ViDoc, or anything else, but I actually had a lot of people asking me what I thought about everything and what was coming up, and I guess realistically, it's a very important trailer. This is the launch week. This is the most important time that we have in the wind-up to what could possibly stem out to show what Destiny 2 is going to be all about in the coming months. So let's just jump into it. Let's just talk about this stuff for a little while and see exactly what's going on here. My intention, just to make it clear, is to go over both of the new trailers that they had dropped, or technically the one trailer and the one ViDoc. This will give us plenty of information to kind of root through, so let's just jump into it and get to it. Bungie also released another trailer called The Last Stand of the Gunslinger, and it's more of a gameplay hint than it is much else. It's the final moments that we do see with Cayde in full cutscene format. This trailer, however, does cut to a few extra bits of that, and it does show a little bit more about what we can kind of expect with Uldren, and more of what it is that's happening with him, and what his motivations sort of are. We're still kind of fuzzy and it's unclear on full intent and full reason. I also really just have to give it to Nolan North here. I honestly had forgotten for a little while there, except for a couple little witticisms that really felt like Nathan Drake with the performance by Cayde, that he was the one that actually had voiced Cayde this time around. If you're not familiar, Nathan Fillion was actually told that he did not have to return to voice the last few pieces of Cayde, and I can't tell. There's very few instances that really make me think that what I am hearing is another voice actor, and that's actually pretty cool for me to say of Nolan North, of somebody that I didn't necessarily like too much as a voice actor when he really got started. He's definitely grown, and it's obvious with the way that he voiced Cayde in this little sequence. I can't wait to see the full performance once that goes live in Forsaken. What we see next is a little baffling, because overall this does seem like the throne room of the Awoken. This seems like where we meet Uldren and Mara Sov in the first instance, but it definitely looks like it's been cut up and kind of tangled and mangled. When all is said and done, it does seem to match it. I'm just more so basing it off of the design of the background right behind Uldren. But I'm trying to figure out why it would have been beat up as bad as it has been. This really does show that the Reef has been through a lot, and that's not good. Overall, that means that the people have definitely not exactly felt, maybe they've more been jacked up as much as we have throughout the campaign of Destiny 2 and otherwise. We really, I think that's what I'm excited for Forsaken, is the fact that now we get to see the other half that we haven't for a little while. We get to see the Reef. We get to see those items that we haven't been able to really see the effect of, like what the Red Legion or others have really come down on their heads for. That's going to be the most interesting part of, I think, most of Forsaken, but anyway. And I was actually going to make a video about whether or not Verix and Petra were going to be on our side, but Petra, of course, was kind of an easy one, I think, to kind of distinguish and figure out. Petra seems very loyal more towards her queen than ever to Uldren Sov, and that is something that I think is a fair distinction to make. She's made fair friends with us as the Guardian over the years, and definitely through House of Wolves and then also at Taken King, but I am definitely interested to see how far this relationship will go. We're still not sure of Verix. I don't think of, or can't think of anything that actually has been presented to us as him being around. I know some have speculated it might be Spider, but I'm not too sure about that one. Verix is that one character that we definitely, I think, would benefit from seeing more of. This is more his element, to see him being able to know what might have actually happened with basically the Fallen in general. To see them coming together, maybe not in the ways that he was thinking of, but they're at least coming together. And in that respect, I still wonder how he would view that kind of information, especially with the Scorn, knowing how the Scorn are actually dead Fallen, and how they've been revived. I don't think this is what Varix would want either, and for him this will just be another step on the long fall. Additionally, I want to point out a couple of things with Petra's face, because there are a few extra bad-looking scars that are on her face that she is covering up. This again ensues that the battle that was either had in the prison or otherwise has definitely not done her any favors, and she's just, well, things just aren't looking up for her. And as the Regent Lord of the Awoken, this also comes at a higher price, because she's also had assassination attempts on her life, and several other things since the Taken King happened. But of course, one of the most intriguing scenes that we see happens right here. And I'm just going to let this one play out.
We are not an army. We are not conquerors. We need to keep our eyes on our home, our people.
This is Cade we're talking about. For us to do nothing is...
Say it.
Cowardice.
I refuse to bury any more friends.
You won't have to. Uldren Sov is mine.
And I'm sure I'm a little late to the party to spoil this one, but that was our Guardian. Those last two lines. You won't have to. Uldren Sov is mine. That is our Guardian. That is our Guardian pledging to go out into the Tangled Shore, hunt him down, and take him out. For Cade. And of course, more to the point, it just means that our Guardian gets to talk again. And I hear the triumphant screams happening around the globe. Yes, finally, many of you have been asking for this one for a while, and I am certainly curious to see how far this is going to go. Have I been excited to possibly see our Guardian talk again? Sure, I've been one that has asked for it. Have I let that bother me over the course of the narrative of Destiny? No, I haven't. I've tried to leave that a little bit more open, to trust in Bungie that they knew what it was that they were doing with their narrative, and make sure that yes, though our Guardian is not talking, the ghost is still the one that is linked with our brain, and still the one that gets our thoughts across. To hear our Guardian talk is awesome. I just want to make that clear. But let's change gears back towards the fallen side of things and head back towards the Spider. The Spider, or the one that seems like he's going to ally with us, I'll put that in air quotes for a little bit, seems to be holding a dead ghost. There are a couple of other ghost-like objects that seem to be hanging around in the room as well, and I'm wondering how far this goes. If we are to be collecting dead ghosts again as fragments for either our collections or collectibles in our books, then I'm wondering if there isn't something else or another reason for these dead ghosts, and possibly something back leading to the Spider. They could possibly be his vendor tokens, or possibly something else entirely. Obviously, of course, for Destiny 1 players, you know that this is important because this is where we got our Grimoire cards. This is how we started to collect those things all together. And of course, we had calcified fragments and a few other collectibles that were out there, but dead ghosts. Dead ghosts hold and serve more of a purpose, and it's a little bit more straightforward than something like what I had said with Data Lattice back in the day, or having to shoot different data forms and then suddenly have them form up. I'm looking at you, Mars. Your data spikes are weird, that's all I'm going to say. But the Spider as a whole seems to be a very interesting character, because we are going to see more of a deal that starts to form with him. And we've seen a couple of things where it seems like we have a couple of fallen allies, and these guys seem like they're going to be able to help us while we're out on the field. I'm not sure how true this is, but again, with the lead up just a week away here for Forsaken, the sky's the limit when it comes down to what could possibly happen. And I am definitely interested to see what that something is. The next scene is certainly cryptic, and I know that some of you will jump to conclusions on this one, but I'm keeping an open mind. This is the hand of someone that seems to resemble a certain awoken queen. Marisol very well could be the one that this hand is attached to, hand and arm, mostly because of the outfit that she seems to have on. This is especially revealed when you pan out a little bit further and you see the pants on this Awoken, and it definitely seems like that adds up to the way that Mara would look. but I'm not sure I would say that this was Mara at whole. Remember, Uldren is kind of losing his mind, he's not exactly feeling quite well, and he's always felt that she has been close to him. This is something that we can actually see quoted throughout a couple of the older Grimoire cards that are out there. That little hum of starlight, as he likes to put it. I'm just wondering if this isn't something either a flashback, granted he's wearing the poncho, so I'm not sure if it would be a flashback, but I'm wondering if it's more that this is just in his mind, him feeling like she would be pleased with what he had done. And after all is said and done, he lights fire to the throne room. And what we actually see on the ground is fairly important. There are a couple awoken royal guards. The one is very easy to see in the left front. You can make out the pauldrons and the helmet almost instinctively, and it matches that of the old Grimoire card very quickly. This definitely looks like the throne room of the Awoken, where Mara and Uldren used to be. And, of course, it calls to question, what exactly is Uldren doing going against his people? Especially after just talking to his barons. And speaking of the Fallen, we finally get a little bit more confirmation, or at least to me, that's what it seems like, that Uldren was indeed the head of the House of Dusk. This being the case, when all is said and done, looking back on these Fallen that are behind him, within this dark forest, it doesn't take us long to figure out where exactly he is. Because as the camera pans, we start to see that all too familiar shard of the Traveler, the one that we actually came in contact with. And Uldren kind of does something that's a little bit, well, I'm a little scared to say the least. Grabbing and holding a shard of the Traveler, he looks up at us, pretty well straightforward. And it's just something in his eyes, something in his face, the way that everything kind of contorts and moves. Is this Traveler shard somehow corrupting him a little bit further than what it was that he was as typical? Or is it something more? Because, don't forget, the Awoken are a combination, a culmination of light and dark. Could it be that this shard of the Traveler is actually pushing back the darkness inside of him, trying to have that darkness creep away to the furthest point, and inside of his hand is all of that light seeping through it? Or could that corruption just border on the edge, just as we talk about over and over, how the line between light and dark is so very thin? And really, those are the major points I wanted to bring up while looking over this trailer. This one in particular, of course, holds a lot of little small mysteries that we have to look over, but a couple of bits and pieces that we have to pull from, nonetheless. The largest thing, though, to otherwise pull is how this changes the Vanguard a little bit. We're starting to see this a little bit more. Cade is brought back to the tower, and in doing so, Zavala and Ikora mourn in their own way. Ikora turns back to her iconoclastic ways, and Zavala just wants to pan back and huddle behind the walls once again to make sure whatever is coming, they can brace themselves and either weather the storm or fight it back like they did at Six Fronts or otherwise. But Ikora pushes us on to form a fire team and get out into the wilds to hunt Uldren Sov down. She's the one that goads us into doing so, but ultimately we're the ones that decide to go out and hunt Uldren, to find, overall, what his motivations are, to figure it out when all is said and done. Visually, this trailer just looks stunning. Everything about it just has seemingly increased and changed over the course of time, and what I'm hoping is that this isn't just the PC render. I hope that overall that the console still looks quite this good. I could hope, but I already think I know the answer. These little details, these small little bits that we were able to kind of pull from, especially about the Awoken Guard, the fact that we can see that ghost in the spider's hands, and a few other bits and pieces, especially with Petra's face and otherwise, you wouldn't be able to really pick up on that stuff easily on console. You probably could, but I just hope that the detail holds up quite this well. The fidelity of this trailer is just amazing, and I cannot wait to see more of it. And I know if I don't mention it, I might get a little slaughtered here, but I have a feeling that the Traveler Shard that Uldren is holding might be the shard that is stuck to Fikrul's staff. More, of course, will probably come from that later, but I'm wondering if this is exactly the item that he uses in order to resurrect the Fallen. And this kind of showcases that the Traveler is gifting its power, but it did so by having a shard of itself stuck to a staff. Okay. I'm sure when all is said and done, there is some lore that I'm not seeing yet that I definitely do have to pierce through, and that might be something I have to look into as time goes by. And speaking of, I was met yesterday with the wonderful number of 1,352. This is the amount of articles and items that Ishtar Collective was able to dig through and piece through. This is a lot of items, and overall it doesn't mean that we have this many records to pass through, but it does mean that overall this is the amount of items that we will see. Now, items also includes bounties, it also includes collectibles, it also includes lore tabs and weapons that will have them, it includes armor, it includes consumables, it is everything. So if anybody is interested in kind of piecing through some of that, you're able to there. Just keep in mind there are spoilers that were talked about on Twitter as have kind of released ahead of time. They actually had an API error and were able to finally look into everything that Forsaken will have, but that's a bit of a double-edged sword. For me, it's going to make my content choices a little bit more understanding of where they might be coming from, as well as also time gating myself a little bit based on what it is that we end up having released over time. These are the questions, however, that we might need answered, and being able to dig into it ahead of time just might help me, especially with my limited time schedule. That's all I'm going to say. But the entire purpose of the ViDoc was actually to go over the whole ideas of what's to come with Forsaken and afterward. It's to answer the questions of what I've been wondering for a little while now. What is it that annual pass is going to actually give us over the course of time? And here they actually answer those questions rather well, especially with an image that was posted to the Blizzard store not long ago as well. Bungie has officially tweeted it out too, so we're going to look over that a little bit. Of course, what we have right now is all the preload information and everything for Forsaken, and that'll of course be coming out on Tuesday. So not long to wait now, guys. We've got what is it now? 6 days? Yeah, 6 days to go. And that is really not that long to wait. And personally, I've been having a lot of fun with the 2.0 changes so far. Being able to slot in weapons that I wasn't able to really ahead of time was very nice. Being able to play with Perfect Paradox, Null Calamity 9, and then also put in Sleeper Simulant, that has been fun for the little bit I've been able to play. They're also calling Season 4 the Season of the Outlaw, and for me this is kind of perfect because, well, we start to see a gradual change in the way that everything is happening. I mean this with the names that we start to see, with the stuff that we're given over the course of Forsaken's release, as well as all of the stuff that is included in the annual pass, just the names that are included with them overall. We're being given titles, we're being given a lot of other things, but one of my personal favorites is the fact that we are actually going to be getting heavy machine guns back. Thunderlord. Thunderlord is going to be in my armament like all the time after that's released. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to have so much fun with that thing. I think as it gets closer, we'll take a peek into each of these seasons and each of these expansions and what they'll end up holding, but I will leave that for a lot of the news channels if it isn't anything that's really beneficial to talk about for you guys. But I did want to at least bring your attention to a few things. Around the corner, we still have a lot more to look forward to when it comes down to Forsaken. And the idea, of course, is to get rid of content droughts. We'll see, of course, if that ends up happening since they've made that promise in the past, but I am a little bit more hopeful, especially with the stuff that they have shown off already. Overall, we'll just have to wait and see. But to me, I'm definitely getting a little bit more hyped than I probably should be, just to admit that. Alright, I think I have rambled and kind of talked a little bit more than I needed to, but there was one more thing that Bungie did release for us yesterday, and that was Cade's final letter. I'm going to actually be doing my next video on this, which is actually why I'm not focusing too heavily on these 2 trailers as much as I probably could be or should be. I want to make sure that with the information that we're seeing, we're going to get these cutscenes soon enough. Next week, in fact, we're going to be able to dissect and bisect these things even more than what we already have. That's why I didn't put a high priority on really looking through the trailer. But really, I am hoping to get that video to you guys as soon as I'm able to, which I think this is a nice little introduction to the topic that I want to do, which is a little bit of a send-off for Cayde. Still, it rounds into a few different topics, which I'm excited to get into and finally talk about. That being said, I appreciate you guys sitting here and listening to me ramble for as long as I did over the course of the Forsaken ViDoc and the Forsaken launch trailer. I am truly excited to see what exactly does happen with Forsaken. And I think that these last couple of videos were exactly what I needed to kind of push me over the edge. Is there anything that you guys are highly excited for? Is there anything that you saw that I may have forgotten about or didn't point out within the trailers themselves? I know there are a few things within the ViDoc that we didn't really touch base with, but just knowing where the game is going, knowing what it is that we have to look forward to, for me, that was enough. Anyway, again, I will leave it here for the time being. If you guys liked what you heard, you know the buttons to press as well as subscribing, and don't forget, of course, about that bell if you want to know about more notifications from videos of myself for when they go live. To Guardians and non-Guardians alike, I'll see you next Spacetime. Take care.